If you follow this channel, you'll know that my wife and I recently tested positive. My wife's doing a lot better. She's doing great. We've kind of flip-flopped. At first, she was doing not so well, and I was doing fine. And I was spending my time taking care of her. Well, she's now spending her time taking care of me. As she's progressed, she's gotten a lot better, and I've had a bit of a setback. Largely my fault, I'll admit, because I just don't do well at rest. I've been still running and getting out and splitting firewood. But today especially, I'm going to allow myself to be sick and not do much of anything. Look at my eyes. Don't they look terrible? I guess it's virus eyes or whatever, sick eyes. But that's not what this video is about. That's not what I want to ask you to get help with if you have this, even though that's what the title says. What I want to ask you to get help with if you have it is mental illness. This is a topic that only in recent times has become popular to talk about, and I'm going to talk about it right now for a specific reason. That's because while I'm laid up at my house with my wife, struggling with this virus, my father, who I haven't seen in 11 years, is in a hospital. He's had massive heart attack, open heart surgery years ago. He's just been in terrible health the last few years. I haven't seen my father in 11 years. I haven't spoken to my mother in 11 years, even though I made an attempt this summer. And I have 3 adult children from whom I've been estranged for that same period of time. And I'm out here today to air it out to the light, because light removes all darkness. I've mentioned these things briefly in other videos in the past, and people have said, oh my God, what happened? Or they've said, I'm sure whatever happened, it can be overlooked because whatever, you did, you being me, or whatever was wrong, obviously you're a different person now. Obviously you've changed. If these people would just give you a chance, they would probably come running back into your life because you're such a great guy, etc., etc. I've been making videos on here on YouTube, on social media, putting myself out there in ways most people are scared to put themselves out there for years. If anything about who I am was not transparent, you would have seen through that by now. Here's what happened. Nothing happened. And that's the problem. My family suffers. There are members in my family who suffer from severe mental illness, and they have never gotten help. And it has affected everybody to the degree to where we've become estranged. Others of my siblings have been estranged from my parents for many years. There's one that is not, and she has a very codependent, controlled relationship with them. And hear me out. The point I want to make first and foremost for this, and I'm only making this video because it has been highly recommended to me by my mental health professional to let the darkness air in front of the light. I do not resent either parent. I do not resent any of my siblings. I do not resent my other 3 children who have had nothing to do with me for more than a decade, to whom my arms remain open and always will. I don't resent mental illness because it's something people don't ask to have. What I resent is if anything, is the unwillingness people have to get help when they need it. Mental illness is not a weakness. It's something that is. It's something that wasn't understood many years ago. It's something that's more understood now than ever at any time in history, and it's something for which there's help. I would conjure to state that my mother suffers from borderline personality disorder. This is a disorder in which people view the world as either black or white. There's no gray. There's no in between. So everything's either all good or it's all bad. If anything happens, it's either great that it happened or it's terrible that it happened. And if it happens to be terrible, the only method for dealing with the situation is to go into complete crisis mode. When it comes to people in your life, people are either all good or they're all bad. You're either the best employer I've ever had, or you're the absolute worst employer I've ever had. You're either the best neighbor I've ever had, or you're the worst neighbor I've ever had. The true damage that's done is when you have multiple offspring, because one of those offspring will be the best offspring you've ever had, and the rest will be the worst. What people with borderline personality disorder, and they've taken the word disorder off. They've taken this off of everything, trying to less stigmatize it. But let me tell you, you can call it what you want. The effects it has is real, despite the label. But we'll call it BPD, borderline personality, whatever. The biggest fear of these folks is rejection. So often what they'll do as a defense mechanism is they will reject people first, so they can't be rejected. I have a sister much younger than me who tells me a story of when she can remember when I was in 5th or 6th grade, and she hadn't even started school yet. There's an 8-year difference in our ages. My mother was watching a talk show. I think it was the Oprah show, and a host on the show, a counselor, made the comment, a daughter is a daughter all of her life, a son is a son until he takes a wife. My sister says my mother broke out into tears. She became hysteric, and she was upset the rest of the day. And my little sister, a preschool girl, kept saying, "What's wrong, Mommy? What's wrong?" And she just continually said, "I'm going to lose Kevin. I'm going to lose Kevin." And my mother has spent, from the time I was 12 years old, rejecting me. Going out of her way to make sure I would not be part of her life and that I would never come back into her life. She's done this multiple ways. She did it when I was in high school, when she garnered the knowledge that I was promiscuous, trying to be clean here with my high school sweetheart. She kicked me out of the house before I was even out of high school. When I was brought back into the house, and then when I went off to college, at 11 a.m., I left that morning to go off to college, and I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. A couple of my sisters have done it since. She wouldn't even get up out of bed to tell me goodbye. The biggest damage came when I went through a divorce, went off to war, came home, wasn't doing so well, was in a very dark place. I was considering taking my own life on multiple occasions, and I even spent a week on the psych ward at a VA hospital. I ventured off to the Philippines, had dearly there. My son Daniel had already been born by this time because I'd gone back and forth to the Philippines a couple of times trying to figure out life. My parents didn't even know I had a son when he was 10 months old because of the guilt shaming I've spent growing up with my entire life. I just couldn't take, on top of everything else I'd recently been through, being guilt shamed about one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. I finally went back, and I kept in contact with my 3 children for some time, and as toxic as our relationship has always been, I kept in contact with my parents. I've only recently found out. I kept in contact with them for a couple of years. I would email, and of course I would be guilt shamed if any response did come. And I've only recently found out that my sisters and everyone else who was close to me were told the whole time by my parents they had no idea where I was and what I was doing. This is not true. And my other children kept in touch with me, and I was able to visit them in England, where they were taken while I was laid up in an army hospital having surgery and going through rehab. I could have no say in the matter. I was fighting for my life, being only months removed from combat action in Iraq. They stayed in touch with me up until a certain point when all of a sudden, all contact ceased on their end. Everything stopped. The pieces of the puzzle have been put together. I've recently found out that my daughter Emily, who was always a daddy's girl, she was born on my birthday, posted a comment on her social media page that said, My heart has been broken forever. I will never be the same. And then all communication was dropped with my siblings as well. Communication going between them and there. I have recently come into the knowledge that my mother, in further attempts to reject me and make sure I was never part of her life again so that I could not reject her, led my sweet, precious daughter and my other daughter Olivia and my son Christian to believe that I was a monster that I am not. She led them through false narrative and untrue statements to believe I was one of the worst monsters our Creator has ever placed on this earth. And it is not true. The allegations she made are false. Her entire narrative of me, my entire life, is false. I'm struggling right now with something that has taken the lives of a lot of people. It's not going to take mine. I can promise you that. I've had a bit of a setback, and I don't feel nearly as good as I felt the first few days that I've had this thing. But I'm giving you my word right now. I'm going to kick this thing's ass. And there's something else I'm going to do going forward, and that is I will not allow other people's false narratives to be my reality. I will no longer live their lives because I want to take the path of least resistance. I will no longer be that 70-pound little boy that used to get the shit kicked out of him by a 200-plus pound man when the person suffering with borderline personality disorder deemed that the little boy had done something he had not and demanded he be punished. Those days are over. The darkness is being led into the light. Christian, Emily, Olivia, I love you. I've never stopped. You have a brother, a little half-brother, who is the sweetest thing in the world that would love to meet you, and his mother would as well. Again, it is 2021. There is too much help out there. If you have mental illness, those around you who are feeding into your false narrative, as I did myself for many years, are not doing you any favors. They're being your enemy. My father, his fault was working as a gatekeeper because he's the one that had to live with her. I reached out to all my family members this past summer after my baby sister reached out to me. I've talked to my father on the phone a couple of times. As I expected, when I called, the first thing he did was pick up in the middle of an argument we left off on 10 years ago. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to do this. I said, I know who I am. I know who I'm not. I'm willing to have a healthy, loving relationship with anybody who is equally willing to have a healthy, loving relationship with me. That includes you. That includes Mom. That includes all my siblings. But the minute anyone wants to go toxic, I'm not having it. He didn't really know what to say or how to respond, but he did his best. He made an effort. We talked once more after that, and then we just dropped out of contact. I have since come to know why. My father, who right now is in a hospital, having more problems with complications from his heart issues, heart disease, some stomach issues, high blood pressure, has been pleading with my mother to come down here. I lived 3 hours away from my parents, and I made it clear to him when I called, I'm not going there. I don't feel safe there, but you are welcome to come see me anytime you want. I was told at the time he wasn't up for the drive. It was 3 hours. The next week he drove 8 hours one way to take my sister, with whom they have a very dependent relationship, to Myrtle Beach and her children. That's just a fact. I don't resent that action. I don't even resent the lie, because the thing is, I'm used to it. I'm 48. I'm used to it. I know how things roll, okay? But he's at a point, about a month ago, he was pleading with my mother to come down here and see me for the first time in 11 years, to meet their grandson, Daniel, for the first time in his nearly 11-year-long life, and to meet their daughter-in-law, dearly, my beautiful wife, with whom I've been together for 12 years. My mother absolutely refused. She absolutely rejected the idea of that. And by the way, I'll point out, I called her as well and left a voice message, and she never called me back. I can't imagine being less than 3 hours away from my child, not having seen or heard from them in 11 years, and continuing to reject them. I understand why. It's not her fault. She didn't ask to have borderline personality any more than people who suffer from addiction ask to have the addictive gene. Any more than people who have cancer ask to have cancer, any more than someone who has contracted the virus asked to contract the virus. But there's help out there once we get these things. There are programs, there are medical facilities, there are therapists. If you're struggling with mental health issues, if you have a condition that is defined in that book they have, DSM-V4, DS, whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. I'm a little ill right now. It's not just you that's suffering. It's others. Anyone who is within your inner circle is affected by your condition. It's tough because mental illness is one of those things that tells you don't have it. But when so many other people around you let you know, they give you signs, if you stop and ask yourself, is this logical? Is it logical that I have a child that made the great mistake throughout his life of being a human being, just like the rest of us? He's only 3 hours away. I haven't seen him in 11 years. Well, the hell with him. I hope I never do again. That might be an indication that you might need some help. And again, my door is always open to you. If you came tomorrow, you're more than welcome. No resentments. I know what you did. I know the false narrative you created to not just keep me away, but to keep my children away from me. And what I will tell you is I fully forgive you. If you're carrying around the guilt and the shame that you've dumped on me my whole life, I want to let you know I'm dumping none of it back on you. I love you as best I know how. I'm no longer making the choice to love you from a distance. You continue to make that choice. And again, Dad, you're in a hospital. I wish you the best. I hope you pull through this thing just as I hope me and my wife pull through our thing. You're welcome here anytime as well. And wouldn't it be great to go out? Let's say our days are numbered. Wouldn't it be great to go out by standing up for yourself and saying, well, then stay here. I'll see you when I get back. If it's got to come to that, come on down alone. I'd love to sit down and have one last conversation with you as well. And again, Christian, Emily, Olivia, wherever you are, I bought a house bigger than me and my little family needed, and I bought it for a reason. We got spare bedrooms we don't use. Well, we actually use them for storage and office space. But we've got spare bedrooms that are yours anytime you want them, and I don't care for how long. You let me know, I will put you on the next plane to Virginia. And again, Mom, Dad, everyone in my life, all family members, I will never, ever reject any of you. I will only reject your false narratives.